For the fellow members here, Central Florida facilitators, thank you, but I want you to be aware of your role, far more important than mine. Because you are the foundation on which the club is built. How strong is your foundation? If you think about your own in times of your life, you can imagine crisis points you've hit. Something that may have been traumatic. Something that completely threw you for a loop. Something that shook you to your foundation. How did you react?
When I was president.
One of those moments that comes to mind for me was about 2008. I was talking to my boss. I was asking for a raise. I was asking to be promoted. Always a tough discussion. I did everything you're supposed to do. I pointed out what I had done. I had pointed out my skill sets. I had pointed out my qualifications. I had a direct comparison to a friend of mine who had the exact same experience I had, the exact same education I had, and almost the exact same skill set I had. And he was the principal software engineer. I was still at the senior level. I had every reason to ask for it. And I made the case calmly, and weirdly, apparently, I was the first one who had ever asked him for this. Maybe that should have been a clue. I was a remote worker. At that moment, I'd been visiting on site, so I talked to him face to face. I went back home. I'm calling in to our team meeting the next week. And we're talking about what we're going to work on next, and I'm pointing out we should be looking into this new specification and trying to implement that. But I didn't know much about it and said we need to get more information about it. He turns around in the middle of that meeting, lambasting me for not knowing the specification, because that's what any principal software engineer would know, in front of my team. What would you do if your boss did that to you?
Cry.
I went the other route, I suppose. I didn't say another word. I had no reason to. There was no point in me speaking up. I wasn't getting anything. I had no reason to be invested in what I was doing. I still hung around for a couple more years, got the paycheck. I actually did some good work I enjoyed. But I had been hammered. Did it get me to my foundation? I would have said not quite, because I knew what I had said was right. I was qualified, I was capable, and I deserved at least that much. And as it turned out, the team lead, who had been in that meeting, had gone to our boss immediately afterwards, telling him that was wrong. I'd never said anything to him. That's what leadership is. It's not the person who gets to come up with the hammer and bring it down. It's the person who goes afterwards and is trying to forge something better. This club has gone through its moments in its past. We've had more than a few. Every club does, especially when you hang around this long. The most traumatic for us was when we had to change location. Anybody who's ever seen a club change location, you would realize you might as well be starting a new club. Because the change in the commute is going to lose you members. The change in the venue is going to change the character of how you behave. It's the character of the club would change. We used to meet at Hospice of the Comforter before we came to here. It had gotten tense there. They essentially wanted us out. This was available. Great fit. But it was still a move. It was still a trauma. But it also happened when we were at one of our strongest points. We had such a strong membership at that point in time, even if it was only a mile away, that the move went smoothly, that we came here and we kept the character, but then we added to it, because here we can bring wine. And amazingly, how that smoothed everything out so much better for everybody. Our foundation was strong, and when something hard hit us, we didn't crumble. We actually rebuilt and continued on, and we have been going strong for most of those years. It's always a rebuilding process because some people are leaving, some people are coming in. But we have had, if you haven't listened, several people who have been here 12 or more years in a single club. That does not happen often. But we would certainly like to have more of them hanging around that long, hopefully. All the newbies, no pressure. The strength of the foundation will determine what you are able to build and what you're able to forge. But keep in mind that what we do in the Toastmasters program is building your foundation, your individual one. When you look at what we do, all we're trying to do is trying to build your confidence, build those habits that allow you to get up here and talk, to allow you to feel comfortable or at least not look uncomfortable. That is the key. And to get to the point where you realize you can do this, even when it's hard, even when you don't want to. You can get up here because you've built the foundation. Every time you give an evaluation, you're putting another brick on somebody's foundation. That's why they're important. That's why it is important when you hear me harp on it all the time, end on the high note, because I want them to be able to walk away going, I can do it again, I want to do it again. And realizing that I can do it again. The day will come when it will be difficult to get up and talk. But your Toastmasters training will pay off. And let me tell you why. In 2004, not just a day after I met Susan, I was taking a course at the National Guild of Hypnotists. It was Train the Trainer. I had actually been doing hypnosis for 17 years by that time. And in fact, had already gotten professional training 3 years earlier. I had been out there doing the real work. I knew how to do it. And I'd been doing Toastmasters for 6 years by that time. I'd also been teaching at Seminole State College, Seminole Community College at the time, for a few years by that time. Part of Train the Trainer classes, you get up and you're supposed to present like you're going to teach a topic. And it was about hypnosis because that's what we were learning there after all. We did it in groups, and when our group came up, I was like the third one to speak. I'm the one who gets up to speak. I get about 2 minutes in, and our instructor just cuts me off from the back of the room and starts pestering me, hitting me with a bunch of questions. What are you doing? Why are you doing this way? What is it that you're trying to teach us? What do you know? Do you know what you're doing at all? I was stunned, honestly, because I was like, I knew what I was talking about. I knew what I was talking about. I knew I could present what I was talking about. I had no idea what his problem was. But what do you learn, one of those things when you're in Toastmasters? What's one of those things you learn? Fire. There's a few of you who know it. You never leave. You don't leave the stage. You don't leave the lectern. I knew that one. So I stood there. I didn't know what he wanted. I didn't know what any of this was about. I didn't know he had a beef with the guy I had taught from, so maybe that was the reason I had learned from him. But I stood there. And over the space of the next 15 minutes of this,
Wow.
now you get an idea of what just happened. Everybody else in the class was horrified and going, thank God it's not me. Afterwards, they were all apologizing to me. And all I was doing was going, I just stood there. Because I've learned one thing. You take the stage and you keep it till you're done. Even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's difficult. And in fact, the more difficult it gets, the more everyone else around you would rather it be you than them. You can do it, and what you've learned here will apply to when you go out there. In fact, what you learn here, I want to see being applied out there. When I said I want Tony to be attending less, I mean attending less because her business is doing better. Jessica's not here because her business has been doing so well for her that she's not been able to attend. Jonathan is no longer with us because he is now speaking and traveling around the country or the world, maybe, I'm not sure now, speaking because of what he's learned here. These skills do apply, even in the small things, but as well for the big things. That's the foundation I want each of you to have. That's the foundation I want the club to have, and I hope for the best of us all that you're willing to become another brick in our foundation, and at the very least, come again for the next banquet because we've enjoyed every bit of it.
Oh, we are.